Welcome to the morning meeting. Tim, Sean, and I are here to join you and guiding you through your day, whether you're watching us on YouTube live, recorded, or here on Hootway platform. We're grateful to you for starting your day with us. A lot of going on. Obviously, we're still in the aftermath of both the assassination attempt, Joe Biden stepping down, and then, of course, the launch of the Harris campaign for president. The resistance is back. The media now fully on the side of Kamala Harris, along with her incredible fundraising, over $100 million taking in. The Democrats believe the natural order has been restored. They'll have more money, and the media favoring them. That was what they thought that's what they were counting on at the beginning of this campaign. Kamala Harris has one public event today. As of now, she's going to Milwaukee for a rally 2 Eastern time. Obviously, that will be closely watched to see what she says, how she says it. Extremely important event. As some Democrats thought yesterday, she's kind of wasted the day a little bit, not really driving it in a dramatic way, although she did do the event at the headquarters in Delaware. President Biden, who's now suffering under a tinfoil hat explosion of rumors that he suffered various medical crises in Las Vegas and that he's about to resign or die. He's supposed to travel from Wilmington or the beach back to Rehoboth, back to the White House. Hopefully he'll at least appear in public so I can stop answering texts and emails about when the president's funeral is going to be. Donald Trump has no events today as of now, but he does have a rally tomorrow in Charlotte. J.D. Vance, as far as I know, has nothing today. House is back. Senate is not back yet. The House leadership is doing a bunch of stuff, including bipartisan announcement of a bipartisan investigation into the shooting of a shooting incident, assassination attempt to President Trump in Pennsylvania. There's a couple other hearings going on and meetings going on the Hill on that issue. Obviously, it's a huge story, and we probably should be talking about it more than we are. We're going to talk today about how the Harris campaign is doing, besides the fact that it's got extraordinary press coverage now, and what the Trump campaign's doing. Why isn't Donald Trump campaigning today? What's the planned cadence there? Before they were staying out of sight because Joe Biden was self-destructing. Now they've got a very aggressive Democrat candidate, and the mini deep stakes we'll talk about too, meaning in the sense that it's truncated. So, Sean, I want to start with you. Republicans historically have gotten worse press coverage. Some Republican communication strategists and candidates just accept it. Others try to get the best coverage they can. George W. Bush and Donald Trump did that. How do you think the Trump campaign is dealing with and should be dealing with the fact that the press has now pivoted back to full-on swooning over the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up right out of the gate. I mean, the Axios piece sounds like this morning, the Axios write-up on what's on the race sounds like the now Harris campaign wrote it. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, for context, I think the press felt betrayed by Biden and how this whole age and acuity thing was handled, right or wrong. I think they were scorned. And so now they're back to being who they are. And I think I will give the Trump campaign, let's call it 72 hours. I think hopefully that's what's happening today, that there's a recalibration, a re-strategy where they're sitting down and making sure that everybody understands what the line of attack is. But they've got about 72 hours at the far end to get this together. So I'm going to give them an incomplete for right now, because I think part of it is, in theory, it's one thing. Once it becomes real, it's quite another. It's the old Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And I think everyone just got punched in the face over this weekend, politically speaking. And so let's see how they do. But they don't have a ton, and they're losing runway every hour.
So, Tim, when the Republicans have a single frame on a Democrat, and it's a frame that has resonance with the press, it works. Calling John Kerry a flip-flopper, calling Al Gore a phony, that had resonance with the press. So now the Republicans have, I could read you the list. They say Kamala Harris is weird. She's too liberal. She's dumb. She's failed. She's ungrateful for America. She's pro-criminal. She's a DEI hire. She's a coup leader. I could go on. If you're the Democrats now, obviously you're enjoying having home court advantage again with the press, but how did they keep that going and make sure it doesn't swing back? Because if she makes a mistake, the press could lapse right back into the narrative of this, she's the real life Veep.
Yeah, I think there's like a magnetic pull of the overall vibes with the press. So when you get something like, $100 million and 1.1 million donors contributing to your campaign, palpable excitement from the party. Yeah, the press kind of tags along with that. I think and you've seen like your day's worth of, all right, who is Kamala Harris stories. And to your point, I don't think Republicans found a good way to wedge themselves into those stories with a single frame that is, this is what her uphill battle is going to be. This is going to be the contrast of the campaign. But look, she's going to Milwaukee. She's doing a rally. I think she needs to sit down for a series of big interviews. I think she needs to sit down with constituency press. And what makes me confident about this is, say whatever you will about the 2019 campaign. At the very least, she's an asset who knows how to work the press in terms of volume, right? She is able to get out there. And I think that is a big question for her right now, is just exposure and being able to define like what that core message. We saw a little bit of it yesterday, right, at headquarters, which is, we need just not an opportunity to get by, but to get ahead. It's a prosecutor versus a criminal. It's reproductive freedom versus a man who proudly overturned Roe. So those pieces are there. I think now it's pressing that advantage and getting that out and defining your agenda before Republicans can find something, although they don't seem to have found anything that they really like yet.
If you want to get in the conversation, please raise your electronic hand. We'll get to your questions in just a moment. Please be ready. Sean, if you're the Trump campaign, obviously they're probably not going to raise 100 million every day, but you think the Trump campaign is freaked out about that?
No, it's a sugar high. And I get it. I mean, Tim said this the other day. I think his analogy continues to ring through even louder, which is, I think they got what they wanted, and now you need to be excited. And that's look. I don't think it's sustainable, though. I think they got a lot of money, and we'll see. But look. Here's what I think the bottom line is: both sides are at an impasse right now. Not an impasse, but at a juncture. And the juncture is: does the Kamala team ride the wave and say we're going to keep it going and we're going to define ourselves and we're going to go da da da? And does the Trump campaign hone in that message about how to define her and how to attack her? But they're both unlimited runways, and the question is who gets there first.
Yeah, just really quickly. I mean, like, we're running a European election right now. We have 15 weeks. So like I think part of the benefit is, there's a sugar high. The vibes are very good. 15 weeks is still a long time, but it's much shorter than running a full, 4-year campaign. That's what's
the most devastating negative frame for each side? What's Harris's best negative frame on Trump? What's Trump's best negative frame on Harris? Any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Harris to Trump, it is once again harkening back to like a chaos frame, that you don't remember how exhausting this person was when he was in office, and that and I think a lot of things fit in that bucket, right? It is January 6th. It is the overturning of Roe v. Wade. It is waking up every day wondering what's happening in foreign policy. If it's sent out a tweet and it's going to be problematic and create huge problems for the country. So I think it's division and chaos.
Yeah. I will just real quick. I would say this: the same argument plays out on our side for different reasons. I mean, I would say, look, and this is what Ken Melman said yesterday, and I totally agree, which is, hey, there's a lot of chaos in Washington, but your life was better. Prices were lower. More people were employed. The world was more stable. All of this happened under Kamala Harris. That's the one thing I corrected somebody on the other day, is someone said to me in an interview, does she own his agenda? And I said, no, she doesn't own his agenda. She owns their agenda. It's Biden-Harris. And that was something the president made clear from the get-go. I think every Republican needs to understand this. Everything that's happened over the last 3.5+ years is Biden-Harris. And if I were a Republican, I would just keep going down the path. Yes, they changed faces at the top of the ticket. It is the same problems in America and worldwide that exist, and you're going to get more of the same.
You want more inflation, vote for Harris. You want more of an open border, vote for Harris, right? On the other side, Tim, I think kind of, again, you want a single frame, so you don't want to totally muck it up. But I'm hearing from a lot of Democrats, Harris is now the young candidate. Trump is the old candidate. Harris is the change candidate. Trump is the return to the status quo candidate. And that could be part of the same argument, right? Like, vote for this guy and you're going to get more.
Well, look at Hakeem Jeffries' tweet this morning. Now Trump is the oldest kid. I mean, these guys literally, I get it, but it's unbelievable how quick they were defending the oldest dude in the world up until about 36 hours ago, saying he was fully fit. And now suddenly it's like, yeah, we need the young person. Give me a break.
John, I have always said 78 is too old to be president. I don't know.
I know. As a challenger.
All right, we're going to go to everybody's questions. I see some great folks I want to get in, but let's finish deep stakes. Last night on two-way, Eleanor Cliff and Jill Abramson both said should be Mark Kelly, would be Mark Kelly. the vetting process is insane, right? You talk about a short election. They're vetting these people like, in 36 hours. Good luck if they make a mistake. You guys dissent from that in terms of should or will, or you also think should be, will be Kelly?
I think it's either Kelly or Shapiro, but I don't think anyone matters I mean, that if I were picking, I'd go between the two of them. And like I said, my default would actually be Shapiro because I would rather take Pennsylvania's 20.
Look, I said Shapiro previously. I said Cooper yesterday. Today, after seeing that Governor Tim Walz from Minnesota is in the mix, I think he would be a great candidate.
You're doing your party proud, Tim.
Border.
Tim sees an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah,
for anybody.
It is.
I'm open to anybody as long as they're an astronaut. All right, Sarah, unmute, please. Come on in. Question or comment?
Thanks very much, Mark, and Sean and Tim. So I've got two questions. So many people still see Kamala as a terrible candidate, or continue to see her as a terrible candidate. And I've just read the umpteenth conversation with Brett Stevens and Gail Collins. And what advice would you have to Harris, to the Harris campaign, to try to win these people over? And my second question, if there's time, is what's the strategy behind the Vance selection? It seems to me like an unforced error at a time like this, compared with picking somebody like a Glenn Youngkin, but I may be missing something.
Sarah,
Tim,
who are you thinking about voting for in this election?
I'm going to vote for Harris.
I mean, yeah, I think for Harris, people want to draw the analogy back to 2019, how she ran her campaign. People there was criticism. Okay, she was not,
and back to Hillary.
But it's also a completely different situation, right? You have a short runway with a general election. You're not running in a Democratic primary where your primary goal is to distinguish yourself from 20 other people, which sometimes, drives you to do things or say things or present policy with the first frame of how can I get attention? Because that was a bit of like MSNBC primary. So I think, the frame that she has outlined yesterday, although it was at the Wilmington HQ, is a good frame, and I'm really interested to see what she says today, because I think it echoes that she will run a much better campaign than she did in the Democratic primary.
Sean, there's chatter on the right that Vance was a pick, assuming it was Biden, and now people are saying, oh, maybe it was a bad pick. What do you think?
I think that's a completely misunderstood. Look, I have always been of a believer that vice presidents, especially in Trump, should be a partner. Like, he doesn't believe it gets them anything. I think that our party it never played identity politics. We might have tried to fill a void of something, but in any case, I think Vance is still a solid pick. He's a Marine. He debates well. I think that this assumption, I think it's a little different on the Democratic side for very, very, because of the short runway, because of the state of the rate. I mean, that's unique how that thing played out. But on our side, no one was going to, I mean, all the other candidates that people wanted, if you're not comfortable with your boss, if they don't have, then it was a dumb pick. I think Vance is a great pick. I think and time will prove me right on this. Donald Trump needed a partner, not someone who's going to fill a void that he had to worry about trying to outdo him or outshine him in 6 months. So that's what I would just say on that. And I think that there's always this sense that people think somehow the VP is going to come in and add some huge quality. It's not, and people don't give a crap. It's a little different in the VP race. I mean, in the Dem side, because of the uniqueness of the states that are at play in the runway. But that being said, nobody was going to vote for Donald Trump because he chose somebody else. He feels comfortable with Vance. I think that the one last thing I'll say, and I see it in some of the two-way chat, the two-way chat here. I just want to be crystal clear. I said this yesterday, and I'm seeing people on the Hill say it again. Any Republican that focuses their time and effort on getting Biden to resign is wasting time. And I think this is and going through this process discussion about whether she was, coronated or who cares? No one votes on process. And if you believe that, you were already voting for Donald Trump. So I just agree. This is a waste of our time on our side to be focused on things that aren't getting new people to vote.
And it's amazing they're still doing it. Sarah, thank you. We're going to go to Laura, and then Greg, and then Mark. Bednar. So Laura, welcome. Go ahead, please.
Hi, thanks, Mark. So just for context, I'm a former elected official on Long Island, a Democrat, and the mythical blue wave actually did sweep Long Island. And we've got three, one could argue, competitive congressional races here on Long Island. Tom Suozzi, John Avalon, Laura Gillen running in, winnable, conceivably. Well, I think Tom Suozzi is going to do quite well. Laura Gillen is, I think, newly competitive now. And I'm wondering if this energy that we're seeing in the Democratic presidential nominee, if that will trickle down, whether she wins or loses, and help the Democrats win the House.
I mean, my short answer to that is yes. But what I do think was interesting before we saw the switch too is the gap between, at least in the Senate races, I think in the House races, it's much closer. The gap between how Senate candidates were performing and the top of the ticket was performing. I think there is a pent-up Democratic energy and also a fear that, look, if we lost the presidency, we have a very tough map in the House, that there's a focus on these House races as the last bulwark of potentially checking another Donald Trump presidency. And I think that is something that will energize folks too. So I think, yes, top of the ticket, presidential energy, very good. But I think also House stands on its own a little bit uniquely in this cycle.
The one thing I would just say is, look, the biggest issue that Republicans were using as a cudgel down ballot was to say, you're complicit. The president doesn't have this. That's taken off the table. So it makes it more competitive in that one issue is gone. And now it goes back to a truly policy-driven race on every front. You took that issue off the table. I think that helps Democrats in a lot of fronts. So does it make it winnable, et cetera? Maybe it makes it tighter and it takes a key issue off the table that Democrats don't have to answer anymore.
Laura,
Thanks.
former county exec and great participant. Thank you. How'd you find out about two-way?
I found you on Twitter.
Great. Laura, thank you.
I love it. Thanks.
Greg Kelly of Manhattan, Gotham City. Greg, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark. Just a couple of quick observations. So everybody knows or remembers, I mean, Donald Trump has been polling audiences at rallies for over a year about whether or not Biden was going to make it. And audiences overwhelmingly said he's not going to make it. And he said, I don't think he's going to make it. I wonder just how surprised they are by this. But I'm kind of surprised that there isn't more curiosity about what just happened in Rehoboth or Washington. The stories so far, I think, have been very superficial. The so-called TikToks from the New York Times have not been adequate. I mean, something incredible just happened and we don't have the story. And I think it's pretty amazing that, the establishment media seems ready to kind of move on and gloss over it. Joe Biden has not been seen since Wednesday. Questions about his health, I don't think are conspiracy theories or anything like that, or perhaps they are, but a conspiracy theory, look, you have a theory that something happened, just like Russia collusion. It was a theory, and then it was debunked by Robert Mueller. These are valid questions to have. And then one other thing about you guys are looking for votes, and the idea of him resigning has nothing to do with that. Not everybody here is in the vote-getting business. I'm a talk show host. That's fascinating, and it's important. It may be, considered amateurish by the political pros, but I think it is worthy of attention. And, by the way, what's his name? Frank Biden just said his brother is dying to CBS News. Of course, they have an excuse for that. They have an excuse for everything. He's an alcoholic. So a lot of things swirling around. And the momentum and Kamala, it should be one part of the story. There's a lot of other things that have not been answered, in my opinion.
Can I just, Greg, go ahead. I'll use the point of personal privilege as a former colleague of Greg's. I don't disagree with you about I'm probably equally fascinated. So I don't dismiss any of what you just said in terms of fascination, right? And I'm equally intrigued as to some of the theories that have been posted out there. And not to go down a rabbit hole, but I thought the Frank Biden thing, the way they dismissed it, they didn't say he was drunk when he made the comment. They said he has a history of alcoholism. That to me, I actually found sort of ridiculous. I mean, that's a whole nother story.
I thought it was borderline offensive to tell you.
I agree with you, because it wasn't saying he was drunk when he said it. It said he has a history of alcoholism. That was I'll associate my words with yours, Mark. But Greg, I guess the difference is, here's what I believe. I believe that there's a lot at stake in this election and the direction of this country and the future of everything, right? And so I think everything that you said is valid and worth looking at. My question is, with a limited amount of time on the clock, what is time being better spent at? Investigating what might have happened or figuring out how to win so that we don't wake up on November 7th, 8th, and 9th and saying we should have spent more time going after Kamala in a more effective way.
Kamala.
I don't want to sound huh?
Kamala. Her name's Kamala. I'm not being churlish or
no, I was just
scolding
quoting
when I correct
Biden.
you.
But
Okay.
my point is that I don't want you to walk away from this thinking that I don't think that there's merit in what you're saying, regardless of whether you're a talk show host, a congressional investigator, or a concerned citizen. Those are all very valid concerns. My concern is there's X amount of time on the clock, and I don't want to be yelling at the refs about the play that I'm missing.
And Greg, the other thing that's not being adequately investigated is the circumstances surrounding the shooting of President Trump. Both
100%.
those stories are massive, and historians and journalists better stay on both of them. But as Sean suggested, we're also in the midst of a sprint of an election with a new candidate who's about to pick a new running mate and waiting to see how the Trump folks react. Greg, thank you for joining. We love having you. I won't ask you how you learned about two-way because I think I know. Thank you, Greg. Mark Bednar, tell everybody who you are because inexplicably not everybody knows you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mark Bednar. I was Speaker McCarthy's comms director, worked for him for several years, and have bopped around the Hill in campaigns since I had hair. And I guess my question for you guys, given kind of the dynamics of the sprint that everyone's referring to, and also the fact that the VP was able to absolve a lot of her previously entrenched policy positions from the primary, naturally so, by saying, oh, I'm a part of this administration now, don't pay attention to what I previously said. So I guess my question is, to what degree should or will Republicans focus on some of her previous positions on the border, Supreme Court, fracking in Pennsylvania, to win, as Tim called it, the MSNBC primary?
Yeah, I mean,
fracking in Pennsylvania for sure. Go ahead, Tim. Sorry, you.
No. I was just going to say, it is interesting to watch, for example, for better or for worse, the RNC research account on Twitter, great at clipping moments, pushing them out there, getting them into the bloodstream, is similarly in a place where they are finding everything that she has said during the primary, re-upping it, seeing what sticks. But I don't know that it will. I think there is a reasonable pivot to be made, and I'm not saying she by no means owns everything from the Biden administration, but I think there's a reasonable pivot to be made that, look, I've served as VP. There are certain policies from this administration that I want to continue. There are certain ones that I don't and that I will change on. And Mark has said this in previous shows. She's got to put out 2 to 3 policies to show some daylight between herself and the current administration. But I think there is some breathing room there. I think Republicans will try to make the attachment that, well, she said this in 2019, so this is her policy now. But I think that's easier to wiggle out of than Republicans would like to believe.
If we can get it in the budget, I'm putting a countdown clock up on the morning meeting. Every day she doesn't call for the firing of the head of the Secret Service, she's making a terrible mistake. Sean, go ahead.
Real quick on that, Mark. I will tell you, yesterday was you had a bipartisan letter with Raskin and Comer. The idea that the president, and I get it, that's not his focus right now, but this was a moment, and I agree with you, she should own this moment now, Harris. But this is one moment where they could exhibit leadership that they would get bipartisan praise from. And the idea that previously Biden and now Harris isn't seizing on this is beyond me.
I mean, I think there's a resolution, if I'm not incorrect, from Jeffries and Johnson this morning calling for the bipartisan task force. I mean, I do think the difficulty is, and this is part of Biden staying as president, Harris running as candidate, is they can't entirely cross wires. That is something that they have to look out for. But I think that bipartisan commission is probably the way to
change your position on what was it, gay rights or whatever, and not inform the president. That you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. Never.
Mark, let us take advantage of your expertise. We were talking before about the fact that you've got some members of the House conference wanting to drive the issues of what did the vice president know, trying to get Joe Biden to step down. The leadership seems less interested. Just talk about the dynamics on the Hill. Shouldn't the leadership be shutting that down if they're against it, or they can't control the chairs, or what?
I think, to Sean's previous point, because of this kind of weird shakeup right now, you're kind of panning for gold, and it's worth figuring, within having discipline, but you need to figure out what works. Some stuff the press is going to hit on, some won't. I don't think that it's necessarily for the next couple of days, there's not a right or wrong answer. Because I mean, even from a polling perspective, I don't think that the jury's out on what the best hits on her are.
Right.
That being said, she needs to get if she gets in front of cameras, even if she's talking about a rudimentary topic, it's not necessarily the smoothest interview. So if you get questions in front of her about how she's had to deal with the last 4 years, like that could be a real opportunity for her to, not rise to the occasion.
Mark, knowing it's too soon to say really, where do you have the race now? Trump's chance of winning 70%, 60%? Where do you have it?
Yeah, I would say still that he's in the lead, and that candidates down ballot on the Republican side still have the momentum. And it's like there's the enthusiasm for the last 24 hours, but the fact that from a policy perspective, that this race has not really changed.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Really enjoyed having you here. Come
Thank
back
you.
often. Lauren Leader, my two-way colleague. I'd love you to talk about two things. One, as what used to be a Biden-Harris delegate, now a Harris delegate, just talk about whether you think the fundraising and enthusiasm will sustain organically, or what they're doing to sustain it. And then two, tell everybody about the two-way you have this evening.
Sure, thanks. And yeah, I mean, the fundraising, I think the fact is they don't have to sustain it that long. And I do think it will be sustained. And the number that I think is most interesting is that 60% of the donors of that, $100-something million that were just raised were first-time donors, brand new donors. That means they have continued runway. And I think that's a really good sign of potential enduring strength for her. I have to just say one thing about Sean's comment earlier about the age stuff. This would be a really good time for all of us in politics to also get a bit of a sense of humor, because one of the things that I think Harris's team is very quickly very good at is some injecting some humor in this whole thing. TikTok's on fire. There's tons of sort of comic memes. The stuff about turning the age thing around on Trump, why wouldn't they do that? And I know some of our colleagues on Fox yesterday were flipping out about it. It's not hypocrisy, it's a joke. They were tarring the president for so long. You'd be stupid not to turn that around on who is now, in fact, the oldest candidate in the race. So, you're going to see a lot of that. I think they're going to have some fun with it. It's part of how they appeal to young voters. And I think that's going to continue to be a factor, also changing the map, which we've been talking about on our other shows, Mark. I do think the map is different. So just in terms of tonight, I really hope folks will tune in, especially the folks on this call. I can't think of a better time to be interviewing Rev Al Sharpton, and I'm going to be sitting down with him tonight we're going to do a two-way at 6:00. Mark sent it out on his Substack. I hope you guys will join in. I mean, nobody knows racial politics in this country better than Rev. I'm really interested in what he thinks is happening with Black men. He's been saying for a while that a lot of them have been moving towards Trump and away from the Democrats. We'll see if he thinks that remains. And lots to talk about with him. And I hope you all will tune in. He is he's polarizing, but also one of the most interesting, well-connected, and best informed people in politics today.
And Lauren, if people want to watch, where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to two-way. It's on Mark's Substack from this morning, the link to register. It'll be the same link. So I hope you'll register and join in at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, Lauren, thank you. We'll see you tonight. I want to try something different as we close. We've gone over a little bit. We're going to go over a little bit more. I'm going to call on everybody who's got their hand up, and I'm going to ask you to just say one thing, like literally a sentence of what point you want to make or question you want to ask, but one sentence. And if you go over a sentence, Tim will mute you, not me. Tim will mute you. All right. So here we go. I'm asking Ron to unmute. Ronnie, unmute. One sentence.
So what we learned with Clinton and Trump is the voters are very forgiving as long as you're delivering results and the things that matter in their houses.
Very good, Ronnie. Thank you for adhering to the rules. There were some semicolons in there, but I'll still count it. Mayhill, one sentence. Go. Unmute and go, Mayhill.
Kamala turns 60 in the fall.
All right. That's good. Thank you. Lenny, unmute. One sentence. Go ahead. You're good, Lenny.
Good. When Kamala is attacked on inflation, which she will be incessantly, she needs to lean into it and attack Trump for a gigantic tax proposal on tariffs and for a mass deportation that will raise the cost of every fast food restaurant in the entire country. So she should lean into that and say, he's the inflation.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you, Lenny. Awesome. Charles, one sentence.
Let's see how she's going to handle the visit of our greatest ally in the Middle East. Show of leadership or not.
Okay, thank you. And Pete, unmute.
Follow up on that, the headline in A New Republic, Kamala Harris kicks off her campaign with major snub to Netanyahu. And what's the point of that? I see no tax on tips taking traction.
All right, thank you. The Hill reports that J.D. Vance plans to skip the Netanyahu speech for some vice presidential campaign duties. If that's true, it might take the edge off the vice president who's meeting with Netanyahu, just not going to the speech. Thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. We'll be back here at same bat time, same bat channel. No, not same bat time, same bat channel. Tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Same bat channel, same, not different bat time, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. I may have a two-way tonight, TBD. Don't miss Lauren's two-way with Reverend Sharpton. Appreciate everybody who participated, and we'll see you tomorrow.